Hasvini Manogaran. I'm the youngest of 3 sisters. We have a strange fascination for machines. Perhaps it's no surprise that I'm an engineer on the Putri Zamrud. I take care of the pumps and purifiers. My job is to keep this vessel going. We never fail to deliver our LNG cargo to Japan, China, Korea, and Taiwan. Not even storms or a typhoon has ever stopped us. My big break came when MISC gave me a scholarship to the Malaysian Maritime Academy, which had just opened its doors to women. At training, we marched for hours, ran for kilometers. I think I'm pretty good at beating the odds and surprising everyone. I haven't met a woman chief engineer yet, so I'd love to be in charge of the engines one day. But right now, every day is a new challenge, a new beginning.
Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. You are watching a very special session of Agenda Awani, and today this is a tribute to all women out there, because I want to talk about the working women contribution to the Malaysian economy. I want to look at talent, I want to look at the economic impact they're having, I want to look at innovation and creativity. In fact, I want to talk everything there is to talk about, because as you well know, even the newly announced 11th Malaysia Plan, there's a specific focus on the role of women. I have been just a few months back in Tokyo, Japan, and under Abenomics, there's Womenomics, a whole releasing and unleashing of female power. But we will be 2 men discussing this, because I have Johan Muhammad American, the CEO of Talent Corp or Talent Corporation Malaysia Berhad, with me. Johan is a huge task, but we're going to do fine. Okay, I believe so. So let's go to the Malaysian Human Development report that states that the number of Malaysian women who are in full-time employment remain at close to 50 or just about 50%, and compared to the other gender, which is our gender, which is around 70 above, that is not acceptable to a lot of people. How do you see it? Because I want to take your perspective from the angle that you look at the whole crystal ball of talent and employment. Where would you place it? Because I don't want this to just be, women is this number, men is this number. It's not just that. It's also the practicality of the situation we have in this country right now.
Well, thank you, Cam. Nothing makes me happier than being able to talk about women with you. I would like to start off, you mentioned about Abenomics, and sometimes people say there's Najibnomics.
Yes.
Because in Malaysia as well, there is a very strong emphasis on women.
Okay.
And I'd like to quote our Prime Minister. So recently, on 8th of May, there was a major event talking about diversity. And he specifically said that, this is not a women's issue. This is a business issue.
Yes.
Because it's really about economics, it's about business. But let me first motivate the point which you mentioned about participation. So if we look at female labour participation rate in Malaysia, it is currently, based on 2014's latest number, is at 53.6%.
Okay.
What that means is that out of every 100 women of working age, only 53.6 are in employment. Now the question is that good, bad? Well, if you compare that with the male labour participation rate, it's more than 80%.
Yes.
So obviously it's much lower. If you compare our 53.6% against other countries, then it doesn't look so good, because most developed countries are in the 70s. Even our own neighbours, so whether it's Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, they're above 60%.
Sweden have more than 50% in their version of our Dewan Rakyat. More than 50% leaders.
Yes. So we're definitely behind.
But we've taken concrete steps.
Yes. So I mean, for that reason, the Prime Minister actually made a commitment or policy announcement. So he wants 2 things. He talks about raising the female labour participation rate to 55% by the end of this year. And we've made very good progress, because only about 5 years back, if you look at it at 2009...
2% in 6 months, you think?
If you look back back in 2009, it was only about 46%. It was almost like not moving. And over the last 5 years, it's increased up to 53.6%, which is a good achievement. That translates to about an additional 600,000 women back in the workforce.
Let's play the crystal ball game again, in the sense that what happens if we don't acknowledge this much? So what? That's just status quo. The reason I put it that way is because if you look at the impact to national growth, I mean, it's a no-brainer that people have been talking about this for ages, where for the last at least 10 years, but I think more, 60 to 70% of those in our universities, they are females. So if only 50% is what we're looking at in the employment sector, then what happened to all these other graduates and whatever not? They should be role models for a lot of areas, for example, that the nation needs, because they're the ones studying at the frontiers, doing research, and whatever not. But how come it's not translating, and what will that impact be on our economic growth?
No, so you're right. You know, when you talk to a lot of companies, they say, you know, why do I need to do anything differently? You know, I should just carry on business as usual in terms of the way I manage my human capital. But you've highlighted an interesting point. The point is that the demographics of talent have changed.
Okay.
If you go back as recently as the late 80s, the ratio of men to women were, you know, 2 men for every lady in university. But today, as you rightly pointed out, it's now, that ratio is inverse. Now you have 2 ladies for every man. I'm not sure what happened to the man, but that's another problem.
Another episode is
that's another episode. So the thing is that you saw the overwhelming majority of graduates coming out, even including in technical fields, you know, like, you know, science, maths, even engineering. The majority now are women graduates. And if we're not able to keep them in the labor force, then, you know, this talent which we are training and developing and nurturing are suddenly then not available for our economy. And so when we look at the statistics, you know, so we say that overall there's a female labor participation rate about, you know, 53.6%. But when you then dissect that by age and you try to plot what does the participation rate look like by age, you see a profile that first peaks in their 20s. So they leave university and school, they all join the labor force. But then towards the late 20s, it starts dropping off. And it just carries on dropping off as they grow older. So it then suggests that there is a challenge in terms of retaining women in the workforce. There have been some surveys. For example, there was a survey done by ACCA of professional women, and they obviously cited 3 reasons. You know, leaving the workforce to raise a family, caring for a loved one, and this issue about work-life balance. Obviously, you know, traditionally, you know, women have this responsibility, and if the work environment is not conducive, they're unable to balance this and therefore unable to remain in employment. So one of our key challenges is how do we get Malaysian employers to really take a look at the situation. Our talent pipeline is predominantly women. They're not remaining in our workforce. So we need to actively, as corporate Malaysia, take measures to ensure that we have a work environment that's conducive to attracting and retaining women.
And we need to map it to the current situation, because now it's push and pull. When I was first in the employment line, staying loyal until the age of 55 is thought to be a good thing. But nowadays, the younger set of people tell me, no, if you stay more than a year, then that's not cool enough. So I'm like, okay, so how do you map all this, not just demographic, but psychography of thinking about things into the picture? Because we do know that we can't afford not to have our own talent, not only in key positions, but also quantitatively. You mentioned ACCA. I was just going into a discussion the other day that by 2020, we need thousands of accountants. It's not coming in. So let's talk about that after this break, because it's only cool to get this done better and better, to retain and allow more female expertise to come into the workplace right after this. The biggest tribute you can pay to women right now is to allow them to flourish in the employment arena. And I've been to Japan, even in the West, we're talking about this. Now back to Malaysia, I want to see how the employment environment needs to be more conducive to make women want to stay in employment, for example. And it doesn't mean that they have to sacrifice the things that they cherish, like family. it can be moved together. And I want to give an example that I have come across. That's why I like Johan being here, because he has traveled the world on this. He said that certain multinationals, even in the big four industries, pharmaceuticals or even oil and gas, you know, if you're a woman, sometimes you are more advantageous because of equal employment opportunities. It's an ingrained part. But for other types of industries and employers, they might not see that as important, you know. And I know of one multinational that I've come across. If there are 7 candidates, there's only 1 woman. It's not even a competition, because on merit, they assume that the fact that they selected these 7, on merit, they're almost equal. That 1 female will get it, because that's how they put the importance of women in their workforce, because they are still at 15%, they want to get to 30 and 40 and 50. But why would employers that haven't done that be moving on to that? And what have you guys been finding out there when you engage employees on this?
I think you touch on a very important point. Why is it that some industries and seemingly multinationals seem to have some policies, and it almost seems like affirmative action for women? Yes. And to the extent that some guys are saying, not fair.
Yeah.
Now, the reason for that is that there have now been extensive studies showing that organizations, and a lot of this research obviously is done in the US and the likes, where organizations which show diversity, diversity overall, diversity in management, have generally shown superior financial performance, better risk management. And so when they are looking to enhance the diversity of their workforce, they're not doing it as part of women's rights or anything like that. They're doing it because the research shows that, yes, it translates to bottom line, it translates to good business, good business sense. And therefore, that's why they impute these policies. Also because the current state of affairs is that there's underrepresentation. So if, let's say, you know, Talent Corporation had done a survey of listed companies together with PwC, and what it shows is that when you look at listed companies, yes, if you look overall, their workforce, not bad. 60-40, male, female, 60-40. But then when you then start looking at top management, then only 24% are women. In fact, you look at listed companies, only 10% of boards are women. So there is an underrepresentation. I guess when you have an underrepresentation, if you expect it to solve itself, it'll take a long time. I think that's why, you know, companies take a special interest to see what can they do to basically accelerate getting a better representation. You know, that, for example, you know, the Prime Minister announced that there is a formal policy that we want to achieve 30% of women in management on decision-making positions by 2016. You see that this is something that various industries are looking at. You know, some industries are already there. So if you take something like finance, you know, we have already 30% of women in top management. But say, for example, if you take oil and gas, for example, it's now at about only 13% in terms of representation amongst listed companies, oil and gas, only about 13% in top management. So in such an environment, unless you do something like special effort towards it, you know, ensuring that, let's say, for example, if there's a top management position up for grabs, you should at least have 1 woman candidate. You know, it shouldn't be the case that she must get it, but at least that there is given an opportunity that they can compete based on merit,
even be considered,
and let the best talent get the job. But at least you must ensure that you're not subject to this bias where you completely just discount you know, a major segment of the society.
Maybe it's not, because I also don't want to give the impression that this is all depending on political will alone. Because sometimes some top management might not have the intention to exclude, but the system already ingrained, the SOPs, the infrastructure, the whatever lah, the culture of the company. If we take oil and gas again, going offshore, for example, all perception that's not so, you know, valid in the 21st century but still reigning is, you know, females don't want to go offshore. But if you change the setup of the offshore platform, you know, you don't share a common bathroom, but you have separate one, whatever. These small details, when it adds up together, becomes a big deal. Especially we're talking about the female side here, because they're good at looking at details. And if I take Sweden as an example, why must there be only maternal leave? There are paternal leave given there. So the mother, when she's healthy enough, can go back and sort of rescue and continue her career. The father can make that sacrifice and be with the child, for example. So what I'm trying to get at is, it's not just a matter of policy, but the whole mindset of the ecosystem needs to move forward for that transformation to happen. Otherwise, it'll just be incremental change. Or do you see it otherwise?
No, I completely agree with you. You mentioned it's obviously not just a case of political will. In fact, if anything, I think in Malaysia we have the political will. Yeah. The issue is really about mindset in corporates. So it's interesting, we saw the clip earlier, which was part of the Empowering Lives series of films by Petronas, and they shared the story of this lady, Hasrini, who's a female engineer on one of MISC's LNG ships. Yes. Now, you're right. If it was in a traditional form where there was only just bathrooms for guys, it would never have facilitated that. Yes. So obviously having separate facilities for sleeping, separate facilities for having bathrooms is a step to enable it. But in addition to it, because it was traditionally such a male-dominated environment, we also hear from the film that when she went to the Maritime Academy, because it always previously was all male, so they then made a special effort. Let's bring a group of women just together. As one cohort. Kalau bawa seorang one or two, right? It doesn't work because they suddenly feel they're just this oddball. It won't work. So you need to then make a special effort, bring in a group. There's a sense of network or sisterhood for that matter to support each other. That enables a start. Great. And therefore, even like on oil platforms, you now have these facilities, and therefore it's a step to enable it, encourage it, and ensure that there's at least a critical mass or group or pipeline.
I like that. We're on the same wavelength there. Let's see whether it stands the test in the last block, because I want to put a few things together. And I also want to rank it globally, because even our own companies now are multinationals.
Yes.
So it's not just a gender issue, but sometimes there's an intermixing of other perceptions that this type of personality wouldn't be able to make sales to this group of people. But I guess blue ocean is also the thing to look at. Apart from bottom line, I want to argue and pitch that because it's been so male-dominated for a long time, creativity and innovation, when you put a group of females into that environment where it used to be dominated by men, then you see fresh ideas and different things coming in. And that should be good for everyone, not just the company, but for the whole supply chain, for example. But how do we do it? That's what I want to put you to task with after this short break. Yes, you see, I've already started with Johan. I'm so excited. We are so excited talking about this topic. And before I go to the points I was alluding to before with the break, I guess what I must also put on the table is, please convince us once and for all that putting more women into the workforce is not against good family values. In fact, I think we need mothers who will be role models for their daughter, even in the professional space. And that is very crucial, especially for me, my personal opinion, for the Asian family unit, which is so crucial for the serenity of the whole community.
We want Malaysia where we are able to optimize on the full potential of all our Malaysians. And if our Malaysian women are doing well at university and we have numerous examples of women leaders, both in government and in private sector, who have successfully made it. Yes. We want to ensure that we provide the environment which enables them to fulfill their potential. And you're right, it should not be at odds with their other life choices. And I think that's why Talent Corporation, in working with major employers like Petronas and many other GLCs and multinationals, we want to work with employers so that they have a work environment that is able to support the life choices of their talent, male, female,
John, sorry
young,
to interject,
old.
But technological changes are helping this, because especially in oil and gas, I'm sure Petronas has it, you don't have to be at your terminal in the office all the time because you work with international clients who work around the clock. Video conferencing or teleconferencing with New York, Houston, or whatever it is might take at ungodly hours for us, but this is what needs to be done.
Cam, you're spot on. And you know, when you talk about technology, that is the thing. So sometimes when we speak to companies and they say, oh, you know, it's very complicated or maybe it's costly, it's not true. It's all the issue of mindset. I think we should alluded to earlier. It's all about mindset. You know, we have, you know, now we have our smartphones. We can work from anywhere. It's just a case of us having those structures that enable our employees to have that flexibility so that they can better balance their work and life commitments. Because at the end of the day, we need to move from people managing them based on seeing the person sitting in the office until the boss leaves, to managing based on outcomes. So as long as they can deliver outcomes from wherever they do it, we should be happy. And talking about technology, I think that's why, you know, Talent Corporation together with the Ministry of Women, we've jointly worked on a website. We call it flexworklife.my. And on this website, we have a few things. So one, we have best practices, you know, of leading corporations, you know, including like Petronas, you know, money GLCs, multinationals say, look, it's been done by them, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to almost copy and paste, and you can then also implement it in your organization. The government, in addition, also has provided some incentives. So we have some incentives for companies who either want to bring women back after a career break, or even introduce flexible work arrangements. And we even have support. You know, if a company really comes forward to us and says they want to know how to do it, we have workshops, we have HR leaders from other organizations willing to coach them on how to implement it in their organization.
But before I let you go, oil and gas, how do we see tomorrow and days after that more female engineers, more offshore oil rig workers in that sense? Because I guess if we were to break this ceiling for those who are deciding what career to choose right now, what courses to take at university, this might be the final straw for them. Because if we take away that angst of, you know, I might be discriminated again, no, this is for you, then we might open that floodgate.
It's interesting you say that. So you spoke about role models. And so historically, you always think of women in support functions. So say we're an organization like Petronas, well, it's very laudable that, you know, the head of HR, you know, Dr. Raiha, SVP level woman. You have also their finance, also many, you know, their VPs, you know, all women heading. I think it's very notable that the oil and gas industry now, many of those in the industry are now focused on how many women they have in technical fields. So it's very, you know, it's very laudable. For example, you have Pengerang, probably one of our biggest projects, Rapid. It's being headed up in Petronas by Puan Juniwati. So, you know, you have a role model in a technical space, and that hopefully will inspire others, because we always think of engineering a very male-dominated environment. But we know that the pipeline of graduates, more and more women engineers are coming out. We need role models so that
and I'm sure they'll do things in a new way. I totally agree. I don't know what you did to me. I totally agree on all your points today on this show. I don't usually do that, but I guess two men talking about facts about working women and their contribution, I guess that's the point to make. Thank you so much, Johan. You have to come back and we have to continue this discussion. You can continue the discussion, send it to all the platforms that our Astro Awani have. We have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or you can download our application iOS and Android so that you can watch and give comments live on the favorite gadget that you have. I'll see you in another episode of Agenda Awani very, very soon. Goodbye. Thank you so much.